I want to share with you what happened to me this week. As you know, my other job, this is not my full-time job yet, but my other job is I get the opportunity to travel around the country and speak at churches. And last week I was gone for several days. So, at least way over 100 teenagers give their life to Jesus. I left, yes, we can applaud that. That was awesome. This week I took off on early Wednesday morning. I preached in Arkansas, then Shreveport, and then got back, so but here's what got really cool. I got to preach in the town next to the town that my grandmother lives in. And they had just sent her to the hospital. And this is the grandmother that I talk about a lot, and she was the one who kind of helped raise me, right, when I was going through all the things that I was rolling through. And there's her. I actually got to go pick her up from the hospital. She didn't know I was coming. I walked into the hospital, and she needed a ride home back to her assisted living place. So I walked into the room. I go, hey, somebody said, do you need a ride? Uber's here. And she says, what's Uber? I go, never mind. Bad joke. So I was able to get her up into my car. We actually had to lift her up and put her in there because we got the tile over there. So we got her in. We went driving around a little bit, and I got to hang out and talk with her. This was the lady that was in the plane crash with me. This was the lady that was, that basically early in the morning would come and pick me up from bars that I would get left in. And as you hear me talk about the grandmother that took care of me all the time, and even the one in the book that I write about who pulled out half a pool stick, okay, and went to town on my dad. That's her right there, right? Amazing lady. She's 92. She'll turn 92 in about a week and a half or something like that in March. So really cool. Now look, I got to go and drop her off, and look what we got to go do. All right, check this out. My grandma's like, I'm not doing this. This is exercise class. Okay, hold right there on that picture. I want you to see the lady that's sitting next to my grandmother, right? My grandmother's like doing it. I kept going, Grandma, do this. She goes, I'm not doing it. She's bucking the system here, right? I go, Grandma, come on. She goes, I just got out of the hospital, baby. I'm not doing this. I go, we're just doing this, Grandma. Come on. And they're all looking at me. I'm the only one in there that's, not in the 90s. And so this lady here to her left, super, super sweet lady. So they finished all their exercises. They were doing taps, and they were doing this. And they all from Arkansas, so they talk like this. They're like, hi, baby. Thank you for coming and joining us. And so this lady right over here to her left, right, she now is all getting up. Okay, so everybody's getting up to go back to the rooms or go back to, actually, no, they're going to have coffee and dessert, okay? And my grandma goes, I'm not doing that. I said, okay, well, I'll take you back to your room, Grandma. And so this lady here stands up, and she's got her rocker, right? I'm sitting right where I'm having with the phone next to my grandmother. And I see this woman with her rocker, and she's about to take off, and she goes, oh, no. Normally when you hear someone in their, 80s, or maybe she's late 80s, go, oh, no, you kind of look over to see what's going on, right? And I see her start to fall backwards. And I'm like, she's going down. And I look and I go, I probably need to do something here, right? And so I'm watching her, and she leaned forward. I go, oh no, she's got it. And then she goes, oh no. She goes, oh no again. And she starts to fall backwards, and I literally push the chair away and dive through my grandmother here and reach out to catch this woman, okay? She took me and her to the floor. Yes, I grabbed a hold of her to hold her up, and I went down with her, and now my shoe went flying off. I have no idea how my shoe got ripped off my foot, but it went flying across the room. She hits the ground. I'm holding her now like this, but as I do that, I fall now on top of her. Now I'm laying over the top of a 90-year-old woman. And I'm laying there, and I pushed myself like in a push-up stance. I didn't want to move. I didn't know if she was hurt or not, I'm one shoe in, and I'm like this, like in a push-up stance, with hovering over her. Her face is right here. I go, ma'am, are you okay? And she goes, oh, baby, I'm fine. And then she goes, how you doing? I go, oh, no, okay, I'm out of here. And the lady across the way, you can't make this kind of stuff up. She goes, woo, Betty, you okay? She goes, I'm fine. She goes, that's the most action you've got in years. I went, oh no, get out quick. I'm actually asking this place. Okay, so I get up, we lift her up. She's fine. The nurses all come in. I'm standing there going, that just happened. Anybody see my shoe? So I'm trying to find my shoe at this point, and I look up and I see a camera in the room. So they filmed the room. Yeah, take a look at this. No, I'm kidding. No. So I called my aunt and I said, listen, you have to get this footage, okay? Please, all right? So I'm still waiting. She's going to go. They're going to ask if they would, give her the footage and all that kind of stuff. So I'm praying the camera's on, because she goes, that camera not even been on. I go, oh, no, it was on. Please be on, because we have to see this on film, all right? So I'm waiting for that, and then when it comes in, we're going to watch it, all right? So that's my life, all right? And in life, we face these different giants, and today that's what we're jumping into. So if you have your Bibles, turn over to 1 Samuel chapter 17. Thank you. All right, somebody remembers. All right, 1 Samuel chapter 17. All right, and we're going to look at this. Last week, we talked about David and his anointing and how they anointed David as the next king of Israel. And remember, he's having to wait. He's not the king yet, but he knows he's going to be, all right? So we're going to jump into this story, and all of us know this story. We've all heard this story, and I'm not going to read the whole story to you, okay? I'm going to give you kind of a paraphrase version of what happened here in just a moment. So here's what a giant is. We know the story of David and Goliath. Goliath was a giant. Goliath was this giant who was, just intimidating the Hebrews here, into the Israelites. So David comes along. He's about to battle this giant, but we're not there yet. So here's what a giant is. It's in your notes. I put this in just because we all have these giants. A giant is anything that distracts us from our focus on God. We all have different giants. We all have different things we have to face. We all have different hurts. We all have different pains. We all have different distractions. So look at this. A giant is anything that distracts us from our focus on God. Anything that detours us from our service for God. So God's wanting us to serve, and this giant sometimes will detour us from our service for God. And anything that drains us of our driving passion for God. Anything that drains us of our driving passion for God. And I know there's so many different giants that we face in our life, and we're going to talk about those here in a minute, but here's what giants reveal in our lives, okay? And there's all kinds of them. We're going to go through a couple of them in just a moment, but here's what they do, all right? A couple things. Giants reveal our true character. When we are faced with these giants and we have to deal with these situations and these circumstances and these hurts and these pains, and one of those that I dealt with my grandmother, I was watching this lady, and literally while we were speaking and talking about twice, she had just fallen asleep. I got her back to her room, and I just wanted to talk to her. I just wanted to hang out with her, and she would just pass out. And I kept saying to myself, this may be the last time I see Grandma. This may be my last time, and I want to spend as much time as I can. I want to hang out with her as much as, even if she's going to fall asleep, I'm just going to sit here and be with her. And I was kind of facing that little giant, this week as I was kind of visiting her. And giants do this. They reveal our true character, and they reveal things about us. When we face those, you start to reveal things about yourself. All right? And it reveals things about ourselves that we would not otherwise see. Here's some other things. Giants oftentimes stand between us and God's best. A lot of times giants stand between us and God's best because we get this giant in front of us, whatever that giant may be, and God's wanting to use you. God is wanting to speak through you and guide you and lead you and direct you, and me as well. And what happens is sometimes that giant will get out in front of us and will distract us or just stand in between us of receiving God's best. And here's another one. Giants grow larger. And sometimes if giants don't get, dealt with, and giants don't get, prayed over, and giants don't just get laid down at the foot of the cross. Listen, giants will grow larger the longer we allow them to stand over us and have power over our lives. And too many times that's what happens. We let these giants have power over us. As we kind of go through the story in a minute, we'll kind of see how Goliath would have this power over them. And here's another one. Giants reveal the size of our God. That's a big one. I love this. Giants can reveal the size of our God, especially when we want to see God move, And if we have that giant in front of us and we're dealing with him and we're trying to get through it, we have to, do the right things. But then here's what happens. We get to see how big God is by him taking care of that giant. Here's some giants, all right? So I kind of put a bunch of different things on here just for you to look at, and so many people might just kind of say, you know what, you could check it off, say, that's one giant that's standing there. Here's a giant that I'm dealing with. But maybe it's resentment, which is unforgiveness, that resentment, and someone's hurt you, or somebody's, done something to you. Or I know from me, and I'll share this story one day, I'm sure, in the next, year or so, but I have two greatest stories in my life. My first greatest story of my life was when I came to know Jesus. The day that I met Christ, the day that everything was falling apart in my life. I was living with my father, who was a drunk alcoholic. He was beating me up. He was leaving me in bars. All that was happening, and then I gave my life to Jesus, and it was amazing. That was one of the coolest days, and I'm telling you, it was my number one greatest story of my life, is the day that I met Jesus, and he became real to me. But the second greatest story of my life is the day I forgave my dad. You see, I held on to that for so long, and I resented him for so long. It was a huge giant in my life because I absolutely hated this man for what he did to me and what he did to my mother and what he did to my brother, and I buried it in my heart, and I hated him until I was able to let it go and forgive him. And it was a crazy story on how that happened, and one day I'm going to share that with you. But maybe it's resentment. It could be fear, that fear of a new job, that fear of this or fear of that, or just, outright fear. And that's what giants do. This is what Goliath was doing. He would come out there and just intimidate everybody. And maybe it's fear. Could be loneliness. I deal with a lot of teenagers, and one of the things that I see with teenagers the most is loneliness. Even my own son, and I don't think he minds me even sharing this, and if he does, it's too bad. He's a pastor's kid. He's got to deal with it. It's just part of it. No, he knows. I told him, listen, my own son, who's 15 years old, who has probably more friends on Facebook, not Facebook, I'm sorry, whatever the other things are that teenagers have, the Snapchat, the this, the that. My own son, who's was able to play on the varsity basketball team as a freshman this year, says, Dad, I'm lonely. I said, you got more friends than I do. He goes, I don't have real friends. And sometimes, that loneliness is very real. And that loneliness of people that have the same thing that you have, that have the same desires and drives and passions that you have, it's hard to find those people. And loneliness is very real. I see teenagers sitting by themselves over and over and over at high schools that I go speak with and middle schools I go speak with. I just see these teenagers sitting by themselves. Last night or night before last, they all run together. I had a little teenager. There was a 7th grade boy, and he walks up to me after the service. This is right after I finished preaching. He comes up to me and goes, hi, I need to talk to you. And he shared his story with me, and he said, last night, the night before, he goes, I wanted to take my own life because I was so alone. And he goes, I gave my life to Jesus tonight. I said, well, you're not alone anymore, buddy. And I called over an adult, and they took him off and prayed with him. So it's happening so often, and it's so there. So resentment, fear, loneliness, maybe it's guilt or shame or something we've done. I know that I had to live with that a lot of some dumb things that I've done instead, and things like that. And that was a giant that stood in my way. Maybe it's that giant is guilt or shame. Maybe it's worry or discouragement or jealousy or depression. Kind of goes with loneliness. Depression and loneliness kind of really come together. Hopelessness. That's a big one. When there's so many people that run around with this giant of hopelessness, I don't see any light in the future. I don't see any light that's in front of me, and they're just kind of battling the darkness and not looking that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Hopelessness, bitterness, pride, and of course doubt. So let's get to the story. Here's what's going down. There is a battle taking place, okay? And if you kind of look at 1 Samuel right in the beginning there, it says the Philistines, they kind of gathered their forces together, and there's this big battle that's about to take place, right? So here comes David. He comes onto the scene, and basically Goliath would do this. He would come out, and he would say, all right, send one of your people out to fight me so we all don't have to kill each other. Just send your best guy and take me. Now, Goliath was a giant, all right? And when they say giant, this dude was like 9 feet tall, all right? He was like Yao Ming times about 2, all right? Huge, 9 feet tall, huge. I mean, it even goes on in the scriptures talking about how big his spear was. It was like 15 pounds. The spear itself, okay, was 15 pounds. This guy's hurling around. Imagine you having a spear thrown at you, 15 pounds. This giant would come out and he would say stuff like, all right, send your best, let's go, take me, all right? And I understand, and a lot of this was just used as intimidation factors. because I know how many times that I have been in a basketball game as a player, as a coach, and had seen like all of a sudden, that team that we get to play. And you look down there and you go, oh my goodness, look at the size of these guys. Man, they're dunking on, and they're just like, they're giants. I remember so many times we lost the game before we even played the game, by looking at how big somebody looks and how mentally that tactic of is a very good one. And this is what they were doing. They would just not everybody's got a Goliath, right? And they have one that would come out and say, let's go, take me. And he's got this bronze helmet on and all this metal, and he's just standing out there going, and everybody's going, no, anybody want to do this? Not me. Well, here comes David. David comes on the scene, and he basically says, I got this. And this is a little boy. Now imagine you being out there. I'll put it in basketball terms, okay? Imagine you're out there and you got your team together and everybody's freaking out because everybody on the other team is like this giant, they're dunking, they're whatever. And all of a sudden here comes this little bitty guy going, oh, I got it, give me the ball. It's like, you're just a kid. You're just a boy. And some things go down, and we're going to go through these in just a second. Again, I'm giving you the paraphrase version, then we're going to break it down in a second. So all of a sudden they say, all right, you could go, and he goes out there, and of course, he picks up a rock, he slays the giant, and there's your story, okay? But a lot of stuff happens in this story that we're going to break down, okay? So here's the giants that David faced when he got there, all right? We're going to look at David's giants as he gets there. Here's one, David's giants. The first giant that he had to face when he got there, when he walked up on the scene, when he said, hey, everybody, I'll do it. Here's the first one. It was inexperience and a sense of inadequacy. It was inexperience. So he's a boy, remember? So everybody's going to look at him and go, dude, you're just a boy. You've never even fought a battle. You've never even done anything. What do you mean? And then, of course, inexperience is a big deal. And sometimes we think we can do certain things that we actually cannot. Our very first child, Colton, we were in the hospital room. Okay, here's my inexperience, and pride taking over, right? So all of a sudden, here comes the baby. It needs to be changed. I've never changed a diaper in my life, okay? We went through the little class where I did it on a doll, so I was like, oh, I got this, right? Well, my wife goes, you need to call somebody. I go, I don't need to call nobody, girl. I got this. I could do this. As long as I don't drop it off the table, we're all right, right? She goes, you really need to call somebody. It's his first one. You need to really call. No, I got this. So I go over there. About 45 minutes later, it's on me. It's on my face. It's on the walls. The dude starts kicking. It gets everywhere. Finally, my wife is ringing the button going, yes, you need to come and get this man right now out of this room. The lady comes in. I'm going, I don't know what to do. That inexperience of not being able to do this kind of backfired on me, right? And of course, afterward, I was like, I'll do it. My wife goes, no, ring the bell. Somebody come do it. And it took me some time to practice, right? So the inexperience, a lot of times for sure, people are going to look and say, you've never done this before. How can you go and do this? And here's a big one, though, that I deal with a lot in my life is the inadequacy. When you start hearing that voice of inadequacy, where it goes, you know what? You've never done this. Like, I've never been a lead pastor of a church. Never started a church in my entire life. I've been in ministry for 21 years. I've traveled the country. I've spoken at thousands of churches. And I saw a lot of things on what not to do, so that's definitely going to be helping, But never done this. And let me tell you, the voices that I hear is like, oh, you're not good enough. You can't do this. You don't know what you're doing. You know it. And I have to battle those giants. Because like I said a moment ago, if I let those giants get in front of me, what's going to happen is it's going to keep me from seeing God's best. It's going to keep me from actually being able to see God do some amazing things. And I don't think God's done with Freedom Fellowship. I think God is just getting started with Freedom Fellowship. And I believe that the enemy knows this. And I believe the enemy is real. That's the devil who came kill, steal, and destroy. And I believe that he absolutely 100% knows that people's lives are going to be changed forever because of this church and the faithfulness of our volunteers and the people that are coming. And so he's going to try to do everything he can in his path to stop that. And where does he start? Probably leadership. And I hear a lot of those, hearing those voices, I'm just telling you my giants. And I have to battle them. I get on my knees. And let me tell you how I battle them, okay? I get on my knees. I pray about it. I get on my knees. I say, God, you got this. I know I don't have this. You got this. Here's how David dealt with it, okay? Let me give you 3 things that David faced, how he faced these giants when he got there of inexperience and inadequacy. Here's a couple. Look, he remembered his past. David actually remembered his past, right? He goes into this situation, and they're like, in 1 Samuel 17:34, you just kind of look over there, but David says to Saul, because they're going, you're just a boy. You can't do this. You have no experience. You have none of this. And this is what David said. David said, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. I'm sure right then Saul went, okay, great, you've watched sheep, and so you want to go fight a 9-foot dude, okay? Let's see how this works out. But look what he said. He goes, listen, I've been keeping my father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and carried off the sheep from the flock, guess what I did? I didn't run. He said, I went after it. I struck it. I rescued the sheep. But I wish it had been a tiger in there as well. That would have been nice. But, a lion, a tiger, and a bear. Oh, my. Sorry. That's where my mind goes when I read this. All right, sorry. He said, I went after it. He said, I struck it. I rescued the sheep from its mouth. And when it turned on me, look what I did. I seized it by its hair. I struck it and I killed it. And then he goes in verse 36, your servant has killed both lion and a bear. And if there would have been a tiger, oh my, I'd have got it too. All right? So here's what he did. He goes, hey, my past. I fought some battles before, so I know this. And for me, I look back and I go, man, I've been doing ministry for 21 years. Maybe I haven't been in this position, but I've seen ministry, and I know people, and I love Jesus. And you know what? I love people. So, hey, it's going to work. You go back to your past, all right? Listen, here's the next one. I like this one because it's different. He waited for the right time. He waited for the right time. And if you look in 1 Samuel, actually 17:16, it actually says this battle's been going on for 40 days. So for 40 days, Goliath had been walking out going, yo, what's up? Somebody send somebody. No? Okay, I'm going to go back to my tent. 40 days he had been coming out and coming out and coming out, and David waited for the right time. And I believe for us as we began this church this year, and we've waited for the right time. And sometimes we have to wait for the right time, and he definitely waited for the right time. And here's the next one that David faced when he got there with this inexperience and inadequacy. He took a risk. He took a risk. He said, I'll go. In verse 50, 50 and 48 through 50, bottom line, he says this, as the Philistine moved closer to attack him, look what David did. David ran quickly toward the battlefield to meet him. He didn't run away. He didn't hide for something. It straight up says he ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. He took a risk. And if we want to see things happen, listen, no risk, no reward, right? We could still be sitting around going, you know what? We ought to start something. We ought to put something here. We ought to start a ministry. We ought to start a church. We could be sitting around talking about it. Or 6 months ago, we said, let's take a risk. Let's just go for it. And we're praying that God's going to continue to bless what we're doing. Listen, giants are real, and we're going to attack them. Go to the next one, number 2. Here's the second giant that David dealt with when he got there. The second giant is that rules over us, rules over our emotions. This is big because people can dictate us. Yes. Dealing with difficult people is not easy, all right? I was a waiter for several years. Anybody wait tables? I'm just curious if anybody ever wait tables. Okay. I waited tables all through school, okay, at Guido's in Galveston, Texas. Anybody ever been to Guido's in Galveston, Texas? Yes. Well, I actually waited tables there, and tourists are not nice people, okay? I hate them. No, I'm good. The tourists, they come in, and here's the deal. You ever heard that whole, the customer is always wrong? That's right. They are. No, the customer is always right, okay? And it's true. You do want to take care of people. You're in a service business. I love what Chick-fil-A does. How may I, serve you? How may I serve you? How may I serve you? And it's my pleasure. If you ever ask somebody from Chick-fil-A, if you say thank you, they say, that's right. So a lot of times what I like to do is I like to tell them they're doing a good job, and when they say thank you, I go, it's my pleasure. And then they'll laugh. But sometimes people get in the way, right? And this is what this giant was doing, right? I'm sorry, not this giant. This is what his brothers did. Here's how David, what happened in this scene. He gets on the scene, right? And his older brother, Eliab, now, this is what he did. It's in verse 28. Read this with me. David's older brother heard him speaking with the men. He burned with anger at him, and he asked him, why have you come down here? Hey, what are you doing here? This is his brother. This is his older brother looking at his younger brother going, why are you here? What are you even doing here, man? And whom did you leave those sheep with? Now he's asking about the sheep. Aren't you supposed to be out there in the sheep? You're a sheep herder. You're a little boy. We're grown men over here fighting. Why are you here? So he's really messing with him, right? Who'd you leave the sheep with? And then he calls him a name. He says, listen, I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You've come down only to watch the battle. Think about this for a second. Is David's brother jealous? Absolutely. A little jealousy, right? And have you ever had to face this emotion of when people are coming at you and they're hating you because of your, whatever, and maybe they're jealous of you? It's very real. It's very real, okay? I don't get to face that very much because people don't really care about me. What I mean is, I'm not doing anything for them to want. I see it with my son all the time. He's a very good basketball player, and people hate on him because he's a good basketball player. He's good at what he does, and people don't like him because of that, which is crazy. He'll come home and say, yeah, this dad, man, this kid did this, and this kid said that, and he all these things he would say, and I go, because they're just jealous. They want to have what you got. And then he goes out and works out, and he goes out and plays. And people don't understand that the reason why he is good at like he is, it's not because his mom was this amazing basketball player, all right? Well, maybe that's part of it, but maybe it was his dad. I don't know, could be. People always love to ask that question. So where did he get his skill from? And of course, I'd say mom. So, yeah. But he works out sometimes twice a day, every single day. The dude is out there shooting, dribbling, lifting, doing what he does. And then people hate on him. And people even come at him like this. And it's a very real one that people have to face, right? And so David recognizes that their problem, here's what he did in 1 Samuel 17:29. If you looked at one more, now David, here's what he did. Now, what I have done, said David, I can't even speak. Listen, can I not even speak? He says, he asked a question. And then he turned away. Look at this. Here's what he did. David recognized that their problem is their problem and not David's. And that's what we have to do. You know what? That's your problem, not mine. If you don't like what I'm doing, you don't like that I'm doing this, or you have a problem with what I'm doing, that's your problem. It's not my problem, and I'm not going to listen to that negativity. And that's what we have to do. We have to cut out that negativity and not listen to those negative voices and those giants that come in our faces like that. And this is the next one he did in 1 Samuel 17:29. He turned away. He didn't engage it. Could he have had a fight with his brother? Yes or no? Could he have said that, oh yeah, you're da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? He could have yelled, he could have screamed, he could have said, you know what, I killed a lion and a tiger and a bear, man. I've done it all. He didn't do that. In verse 29, he goes, okay, man, and turned away and walked away. And a lot of times when we're facing difficult people, and it is tough to face difficult people. And I remember as a waiter, I would wait on these tables, and then when the food wasn't right, or something was wrong, or we would get packed out in there, especially during the summertime, you don't understand. There would be an hour-and-a-half wait at Guido's on a summer Tuesday night. It was ridiculous every night. And people get mad. They've been waiting. They sit at the table if you're a little longer, and they want to bark at you and yell at you. And it's so easy. Firstly, for me, I'm just like, yeah, I'll spit in your food. But I never did. You kill them with kindness. And I remember doing that. Some people would come to the table, and they would just be da-da-da-da, da-da-da, things that wasn't even my fault, okay? The line was too long, or the food was this, or that was that. And a lot of times, here's what I would do. I'd make them laugh. I would find something to joke about or something to make a joke about, and they would laugh, and they would smile, and then they would tip me. Okay, that was my main motivation, all right? No, it was just making the situation not that, but turning into something else. And that's what we can do, especially when our emotions get involved. The giant of emotions is very real. Yes? Especially if you drive in traffic here in Austin, Texas. Your emotion can get very real, all right? And I'm speaking to me, all right? So that giant is the rule of emotion. Here's the third one. Write this down, all right? The third is the giant of conformity. This was interesting. I love this part about the story, so I threw this in here. When he got there and Saul finally said, okay, sure, buddy, go for it, okay? Not deal. This is what happens. David fastened on the sword over his tunic. he took Saul's stuff. Basically, Saul said, here's some armor, put this on. Here's a helmet, put this on. Here's some boots, put this on. Hey, put this on. Become like these soldiers that we have over here, right? He's looking at all these soldiers that look all the same, and he says, here, take this sword and take this and take this. And he began to walk around with it, and he was like, I can't move in this. And pretty much this is what he said. This isn't me. This is not me. And let me tell you, this is a huge giant that I see, not just with teenagers. I see this with adults too, right? It's keeping up with the Joneses. You ever heard that phrase? Boy, so-and-so got a boat. I need a boat. Man, so-and-so's, look what they did with their yard. I got to do that with my yard. Look how they did this and how they did that. And we really start to want to conform with everybody around us. Then we become this little, cookie cutter kind of thing happening. And this is a real giant. And if you look at Romans chapter 12, and it's 12:2, and I think we put that up there. I put 12:1 in the notes, but it meant to be 12:2. But look at 12:2. It says, do not conform to the patterns of this world. And it's so easy to conform to the patterns of this world, isn't it? It's very real. And not just teenagers. I know teenagers, it's easier for teenagers to do this because they're with teenagers every day, listening to the same things, watching the same things, dressing like the same way. I mean, it's very real. But even adults, because I know, I've fallen into this, do not conform to the patterns of this world. Because you can sit here and watch the news, and especially if you watch certain channels of the news, people will scream and yell and argue certain things. They have no idea what they're screaming and arguing about. Have you seen any of these? People go to these rallies and goes, hey, what are you here for? Yeah, because we hate that guy. Well, why do you hate that guy? Well, because he's bad. Well, what'd he do? He did bad things. Well, name one. Well, I don't know. These people are yelling, so I'm yelling too. You know, there's actually a real group of people. Back in the day, they would do this, and they were called agitators, or they were called something. You would literally be able to hire a group of people to walk into a group of things, all right? And one group is like protesting, and they can literally turn an entire crowd a different direction. Everybody's chanting no, 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 no. And they would walk in and they would outnumber the other ones and start chanting yes. And before you know it, they're chanting yes. You ever seen this? It's very real. That human thing is conformity. I want to be like everybody else. And I see this a lot with teenagers, big time teenagers. I want to be cool. I want to hang out with the cool kids, so I will say what they say, do what they do, act like what they act like, cuss like them, talk like them, do all of those things because why? I want to fit in with them. And they're not true friends. Oh, next week we're talking about friends. I'm excited about talking about Jonathan and David next week, okay? I'm going to jump ahead. We're going to talk about friends next week and who your true friends are, okay? Because you show me your friends now, I'll show you who you'll be in 5 years. Very real, right? Yeah. And so that's next week. I won't get ahead of myself. All right. So here it is. Conformity is very real. I think I mentioned this once already. I'm going to mention it again. Go watch this on YouTube, okay? Type in elevator prank or elevator something or I can't remember it, sorry, it just popped in my brain. But here's what happens. These people get on an elevator and they all face one direction. And this person will get on the elevator and see everybody facing you get on the elevator, you turn around and face the door, right? That's what you're supposed to do. But these people start getting on and they're facing the wall. So the person that doesn't know comes on and they start facing, the door, and everybody's looking this way. The door would close, somebody would walk off, somebody would come on, they're all face this way. And before the video's over, the person's like this. And now they're facing the wall and having no idea why they're doing it. And they would interview them afterward and say, hey, why did you turn around? And every single time, this is what they said. Because everybody else did. Because everybody else did. Isn't that crazy how we work that way? And this is what David said. I love this. He says, this is not me. I'm not these soldiers. I'm not wearing that stuff. I'm not putting that stuff on. That's not who I am. And guys, that's a giant that we got to face every day of saying, this is not who we are. Be who we are. Be who we are. We don't have to be somebody else. And here's the next giant, number 4. Write this one down. The 4th giant is Goliath. Yeah, the real person here, the people, kind of goes along with, dealing with difficult people, but he was a giant. He had to have courage to face this guy. He had to have true, absolute courage. And John White wrote this, true courage consists not in the absence of fear. It's not about fear. Fear is real. If you don't have fear, something's wrong, okay? Fear is very real, okay? Fear keeps us from dying, all right? Fear keeps me from jumping off the 3rd story into the pool, okay? Fear keeps me from trying to do a wheelie down the freeway on my motorcycle, okay? Fear keeps me from, doing a lot of dumb things I would like to do, all right? Like jump off the roof in the trampoline. But, okay, fear should have stopped me from that one, all right? It didn't at that point. Fear is it says, true courage consists not in the absence of fear, but in doing what God wants, even if we're afraid. I love that because here's why. God wants to use every single one of us in this room. God absolutely 100% wants to use us big time in this place, in this community, in your family, in your schools. He wants to use us. And a lot of times we let fear keep us from that. We let fear stop us from that. We let fear control our lives. And we can't let that happen. I'm sure there was fear in David when he looked across and saw a 9-foot dude standing in front of him. There was no way there wasn't fear, okay? There was fear. But he brought the courage in and said, I'm going to go do it because you know why? God's got my back. He's with me. He's got me. I got this because he's got me. And he went out and he fought the guy. So David is the hero in this story, and I'm going to close down with this. David is the hero in the story, right? And he confronts his giants and he defeats them. Jesus is the hero in our story. Jesus is the hero in our story. See, here's the thing. I'm going to give you a couple of these little things right here, and I want you to see this real quick. Here's who Jesus is, all right? The Bible very clearly says in Luke chapter 20, and I'm just going to go over there real quick. I want you to see this in Luke 20. It's not in your notes. No. I just kind of was thinking about this one. But who Jesus is. Jesus just gave a parable about the people rejecting basically a stone. And then he said this. When the people heard this, they said, God forbid that. And Jesus looked directly at them and he asked them, he said, then what is the meaning which is written? What is this meaning? Look at this. He says, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Jesus is the cornerstone. He is the rock. You see, when David went out there and he picked up those rocks and he used an actual physical rock to defeat that giant, you see, our rock to defeat the giant is Jesus. And I'm hoping you hear that. We're all going to face giants. We're all going to have obstacles in our life. And here's the thing. The rock that David used was an actual rock. I'm going to say this again. But the rock that we're going to use to defeat the giants that we have is Jesus, because he is the cornerstone. He is the rock. Look at this. He is the rock of this. He is the rock of our stability. He holds us stable. He holds us together. Would you agree with me on this, that there is so much change in this world? Things are changing constantly. Things are changing constantly. Things change every single day. We change. Our bodies change. Things change every day. And a lot of times when you have so much change in your life from people, this and that's happening, that happening, all that, we just need some stability to know that, you know what, this rock is never going to change, because it basically, Jesus Christ in Hebrews 13:8 says this, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He never changes. As I was reading this, I read this story about this guy, and he has a father who had never really been out before, and he was an old farmer way out there in the woods, and he had to go to the hospital because he had some medical stuff, and he had never actually been to a hospital for his entire life. They just kind of dealt with it out there in the woods, and he takes the son takes his father into the hospital, and he said, Dad, stay right here. And there was stuff happening everywhere, and he says, stay right here, don't move. I got to go check you in, and we're going to go upstairs, to get you in a room. He said, okay. So he stood there, and he's watching this door open. He says he looks over, and he sees this door, and it opens, and this older lady just she's on a rocker, and, kind of looked like grandma, and she kind of rolled into this door, and the door shut behind her. He said all of a sudden these numbers went off, bing, 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 and then it kind of went off again, bing, 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 but down to one, and it opened, and this young, pretty lady walked out, and he just stood there amazed. His son came back and said, Dad, you ready? He goes, hold on. I need you to go get your mama. We're going to run her through this thing. See, it was the elevator. Y'all get what I'm saying? The old lady went on the elevator. Came out with somebody else? Okay. That was my reaction when I read it. Change is real. Change is there. We all need change, but man, the rock is our stability. Here's the next one. He is the rock of our strength. When we feel like things are falling apart, when we feel like things are dying, when we feel like things aren't happening, he's the rock of our strength. In Psalm 62:7 it says, in God is my salvation and my glory, the rock of my strength. He is my refuge in God. The next one is this. He is the rock of our safety. He is the rock of our safety. The Lord is the rock of my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my rock in whom I take refuge. He's my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. He is the rock of our safety. He is the rock of our strength. He is the rock of our stability. And Jesse, you come on up and play real soft, and we'll close down with this. He is the rock of our salvation. That's the big one. That to me is a really big one. This is why I go on the road. This is why I leave my house and my family for many days, because I believe that Jesus Christ is the rock of salvation. I believe that he is the one. I believe this so wholeheartedly. I'm willing to leave my home and travel across this country to tell teenagers and adults about this rock of Jesus. And God has been so faithful in that so many different times, because I've watched God move in places. I'm standing there going, there's no way this is going to work. There's been so many times I've walked up in front of it. I shared that one, and I even showed you the picture that one time where I went down to Corpus, and literally they put all these people in this room, and these high schoolers, and they said, here, talk to them. And it was rough. And I even at one point said, oh man, God, this is not going to work. And God said, you little faith dude, you. And man, God blew the place up, and so many people came to know Christ. I believe in this so wholeheartedly that I said, okay, let me just uproot everything in my family, and let's go ahead and just start this church. And people told me it'll be the hardest thing you'll ever do. And I go, man, you don't know my life. Read my book. I've had some hard things. Plane crashes and you name it, just life going, crazy. I've had some pretty hard stuff, right? This has been tough. But I know he is the rock of the strength, stability, safety, salvation. In Psalm 62:2 it says, he only is my rock and my salvation. He's my defense. He's my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. I watched on Tuesday, and I'm going to do this is I'm going to kind of tell this story. I got some guys, I got everybody a rock. So we're going to pass out some rocks. This could go really awesome or really horrible if you throw them at me. So these guys are going to pass them out. Mike, go ahead and pass these rocks out as I kind of tell this story here. I want you to have this rock, and here's why. Okay? It's just a rock. It's not Jesus, okay? Don't think, oh, yay, Jesus. Okay, no, this is just a rock. And I want you to have this rock, and this is just a symbol of this. And I can encourage you, you can write a verse on it or something like that. And I want you to keep it, and here's why. See, David used a rock to defeat the Goliath, all right? He used the giant. He used a rock to defeat that. And every time you think of your giant, whatever it may be, whatever hurt, whatever pain, whatever things that you're going through in your life, I want you to take this rock, put it on your dresser, put it in your car, put it somewhere where you can see it and go, man, you know what? Jesus is my rock. Jesus is my rock. I watched, and I'll let them pass those out real quick, and I definitely have to tell the story, and I want to make sure you get a rock in your hand before I tell you this. But you can put it on, like I said, your dresser, put it on your bed. I know somewhere put it where you can see it every day. Maybe, I don't know if you want to do it. Maybe you want to write. I thought about this. You can write maybe whatever that giant you're facing on that rock. Put a circle around it. And, one of those little cross-out deals, I thought that would be kind of neat. I think the verse would be really cool, just putting a verse on it. But here's the thing. That's why I kind of thought of this week. Sometimes we need reminders, right? And I had a reminder on Tuesday. Something reminded me on Tuesday of how big our God is, how strong our God is. Many of you know Jaron. Jaron is traveled with me 3 or 4 years on the road with me. Jaron played basketball, and y'all remember Jaron and stuff. Some of y'all do. If you don't, great guy, played ball. He's actually in Houston right now trying out for a team, just playing a little bit. Friday of last, his father passed away. His dad was the head softball coach at McNeil High School. And this guy had a storm hit him head on. He just had a little baby, and everything was going right. And his father passed away on Friday. And he buried his father on Tuesday, and we went up to the funeral. And I watched this young kid, and I say young kid, he's 24 years old, married, got a less than 1-year-old baby. I watched this kid stand on this stage, boldness, courage, with a rock of stability, a rock of strength, a rock of hope. He had the rock of faith. He had all that, and he was able to stand in front of about 400 people and a Facebook Live with the people that could not get in the building. It filled this place up. It was standing room only because his father was very loved. And I I watched this young man stand on this stage about his father. His father 4 weeks ago was saved and baptized. 4 weeks ago, they showed the picture of his father being baptized in a pool. And I watched this dude, who I've been mentoring for many years, and he shared the gospel. He shared the rock of salvation. He picked up that rock and said, Jesus, I need you. And with all those people, many, many people showed up that building have never met Jesus before in their lives. And he stood on that stage and boldly proclaimed that his father knew Christ and he knew Jesus. And here's how you know Jesus. And this guy at his father's funeral gave an invitation for salvation. He didn't ask for hands or anything like that. He just prayed, said, if you want to know Christ, and prayed with these guys. And then when they left out, at the very end, he was shaking everybody's hand. All 400 some people were shaking, hugging, whatever. And he said that, and he told me this a couple of days ago, he said this little girl waited. She was a high schooler that I guess was in his father's class at McNeil. And she waited. She had never been to church before in her entire life. She walked up, she says, I've never been to church before. She had these big gauges in her ears. Like, she had big old things. And she just looked like she's been living in the world. Looked like she's really been conforming to a lot of the world. And she looks at him, starts crying. And he goes, you okay? He goes, she said, yeah, I'm okay now. She goes, I've never, ever been in a church before in my life. I've never heard about Jesus. And like you explained who Jesus was. And I've never in my life given my life to Jesus like that until now. She goes, I prayed with you. She goes, I think my life changed forever now. That's so real. And that was just one that came up. Who knows what effect it had on all the others. I tell you that to say this. We're going to face giants. We need him. We need Jesus as the rock. But here's the thing. If you don't know him, that doesn't help you. Knowing about him doesn't help you. When you surrender your life and give your life to Jesus, when you surrender it all, when you say, God, take it, and he becomes the rock of your salvation, that's when we can pick up the rock and throw it at the giant. So do me a favor, we just close your eyes, bow your head real quick. I'm going to pray for us. And listen, I don't know where you are this morning. I don't know what you've walked in here with. I don't know what giants that you're facing. I don't know what pain and hurt and things that are happening. I know because of life, there are many of you that are. And if you aren't right now, you will be. We have to know this. He is the rock. He is going to take care of it. He is the one we throw this rock at, and he is going to, but like I said, if you don't know him, hey, maybe this morning it's time for you to know him. Maybe this morning it's time to say, you know what, I'm tired of running, I'm tired of playing games, I'm tired of playing religion. See, I'm not talking about religion this morning. I don't believe in religion. I believe in a relationship with Jesus. And so maybe you've never accepted Christ into your life. Maybe you've never come to that place where you said, okay, I need to make Jesus the rock of my salvation. Maybe you've never had that in your world, in your life. Would you look into your heart and ask yourself a very real question right now? When nobody look, I'm just going to pray for it. And would you ask yourself this question? Is Jesus the rock of my salvation? Do I truly know him? If my heart was to stop and I was to die, do I have a relationship with Christ? Do I know I'm going to heaven? Is my name's written in that Lamb's book of life? Not because something I did, because I believe that Jesus Christ is Lord. That God loved us so much, he sent Jesus to this earth to die for us. He was buried for us, and he rose again for us. And when you believe that in your heart, you confess that with your mouth, Jesus is your Lord. So maybe that's not you, and maybe right now you need to say, hey, Jesus, come into my life. And if that's you, I'm just going to pray this prayer with you. It's not a magic prayer, but would you just whisper this prayer to Jesus? Say, God, I believe in you. I believe that you love me, that you sent Jesus for me. And God, I need you. I can't do this without you. God, be my rock. Forgive me of my mess-ups, my mistakes, my sin. God, come into my life. I surrender it all to you. Come into my life. Rescue me. Hey, God, I'm ready to follow you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. If you prayed that this morning and you really believe that Jesus saved you and rescued you, would you just fill out maybe a Connect card, put it in an offering box on your way out, and many people will be given to the church. Just put that in there, or just find me and say, hey, I prayed with you. What's up? What's next? Because we will be doing some baptisms coming up, and we're jumping all in here. So thank y'all for coming. Come back and see us next week. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about friendships and all that. Invite somebody to come with you. Get ready for Easter. It's coming, okay? Lord, we love you. We thank you so much for your goodness, your mercy, your grace, God. And I thank you that when we go through these giants in life, you're there. God, I thank you that you had already won the battle with Jesus. That he won the battle for us. Whatever battle we're facing, God, it's already won. We've read the last chapter of the book. We win. God, thank you for that. Lord, we love you. We praise you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, would you stand?